Ronwyns Cooking Journey, Progressive Supranuclear Palsy, with changes required for meal preparation. If you wanted to understand how important cooking has been in Ronwyns' life, you only had to look at her shelves. They were filled with cookbooks, evidence of years spent reading, experimenting, and turning recipes into meals, cakes, and desserts for the family. Food was never just something to put on the table. There was always another recipe to try, another technique to learn, and another idea worth testing. My own culinary beginnings were rather less adventurous. Before Ronwyn and I married, I had been a bachelor for about 12 years, and the barbecue suited me perfectly, straightforward, enjoyable, and difficult to overcomplicate. Ronwyn, however, had other ideas for me. Not long after we married, she encouraged me to broaden my horizons with a barbecue cooking course run by Barbecues Galore. It ran over 4 sessions, and as I remember it, covered poultry, seafood, beef, and even desserts. At the time, we owned a charcoal Weber, and it became a well-used part of our life together. We cooked outdoors so often that over the years we managed to wear out 4 barbecues before finally moving to gas, but our interest in food never stopped at the barbecue. Ronwyn and I went to cooking classes together, and those classes became part lesson, part outing, and part adventure. One class, held at a market, focused on preparing quail. When the instructor asked for a volunteer to come forward and prepare one of the tiny birds, Ronwyn's hand went up. I can still picture her there. A quail is a delicate thing to work with, especially when you are more accustomed to a chicken, but she tackled it confidently. That was Ronwyn, willing to have a go, curious to see how something was done, and never afraid of trying something different. At another class, this time at a winery, we made sausages. Each of us was given a quantity of meat and some onions. We then had to put the meat through a grinder and chop up the onions. The next step then, we were invited to choose from an assortment of herbs and spices, some grown in the gardens outside. The result was that no 2 batches were quite the same. We also attended classes at a country restaurant, discovering still more ingredients, methods, and ideas. We learned plenty, but the best part was that we were learning it together. The experimenting continued at home. We tried different woods on the barbecue to see how they changed the smoky flavour of meat. Later we bought a sous vide cooker, which opened up yet another way of preparing food. Looking back, there always seemed to be something new waiting to be tried. Then, gradually, cooking began to mean something different. As Ronwyn's progressive supranuclear palsy progressed, eating became increasingly difficult for her. Foods she had once enjoyed without a second thought became harder to manage. Eventually, ordinary solid food was no longer safe, and her meals had to be minced or pureed so she could swallow them more easily. That changed the questions I asked in the kitchen. It was no longer simply, "What do we feel like eating?" or "Which recipe shall we try?" I had to think about what Ronwyn could manage, how a meal could be cooked, and then how her portion could be adapted so that she could eat it safely. In a way, our roles had begun to turn around. For so many years, Ronwyn had been the one drawing on her cookbooks, experience, and instinct to feed the family. Now I found myself taking on more of that role for her. Recently, another chapter was added to our cooking story, and it began not with a cookbook but with the pantry, refrigerator, and freezer. I realized we had quite a collection of ingredients that needed to be used, and instead of trying to hold the whole inventory in my head, I turned to technology. Using an app on my phone, I simply spoke the name of each item we had available, which quickly built a list. I then transferred the list into an Excel spreadsheet. I put the main protein and any particular ingredients I wanted to use in the recipe in the first cell at the top of the spreadsheet. Then I gave the updated list to AI and asked it to create a recipe. It struck me as an extraordinary distance from the days when Ronwyn would pull a cookbook from the shelf, turn through the pages and choose what we would eat. Yet the meal that emerged from the spreadsheet and AI turned out surprisingly well. When it was cooked, I minced Ronwyn's portion so that she could manage it safely. She ate it well. That, of course, was the part that mattered most. There was something deeply satisfying in watching her enjoy a meal that had begun as a collection of odds and ends in the pantry and freezer, passed through a phone app and an Excel spreadsheet, been shaped into a recipe by artificial intelligence, and finally arrived on her plate. When I think about the years behind us, the tools have changed almost beyond recognition. There were Ronwyns shelves of cookbooks, there was the charcoal web of the smoke, the experiments with different woods and the 4 barbecues we wore out. There were cooking classes, a tiny quail, homemade sausages, a country restaurant and the sous vide cooker. Now there is a phone app, a spreadsheet and AI helping me work out what I can make from the ingredients on hand. Yet beneath all of those changes, the purpose of cooking has remained remarkably constant. It is still about preparing food for someone you care about. In that sense, our cooking journey has come full circle. Ronwyn spent so many years cooking for our family with skill, curiosity and love. Now, at a different stage of our lives, I am cooking for her, adapting meals to what she can manage and using whatever tools are available to help me do it. The cookbooks have been joined by spreadsheets and AI, and the charcoal Weber has long since disappeared. But food and cooking are still part of the story of our life together, not simply because of what we have eaten, but because of what preparing a meal has always meant. The process of creating a recipe using this method begins by placing the protein of your choice, in this case chicken along with any other ingredients you would like to use, into the first cell at the top of the spreadsheet. For this recipe I added onion, capsicum and frozen vegetables, with the remainder of the available ingredients and inventory listed in the cells below. Once the ingredients have been entered, the next step is to copy all of the information from the spreadsheet and paste it into ChatGPT. The AI then uses the available ingredients to create a recipe, resulting in the meal shown here. Once the meal has been prepared, a portion for Ronwyn is placed into a blender and blended to a consistency that allows her to swallow it more easily. Although the blended meal is not as visually appealing as it was before being blended, it still retains the flavors and, most importantly, provides the nutrients and fiber she needs. Ronwyn enjoys these meals, and it is a real blessing that she continues to maintain her dietary requirements, health and weight.